Hi, Lady Phyll. I'm gonna get the fanboying out of the way hard.
Oh no, no fangirling or fanboy or fan person over here. We're just, you know, two strong black individuals speaking with each other. Can I make sure I get pronouns correct?
Absolutely. So I use she and they, so they're interchangeable. So that's
Right.
absolutely fine.
Okay, good, good.
I think for me, it more comes up when I talk about like womanhood. I recognize I've been conditioned in a very black female way. That's how I'm received in the world. But how I'm evolving in understanding myself is that there's more. So yeah, so it's
Beautiful.
more the word woman in a sense is, and lady. Oh, that's an absolute no. It gives me my fair lady vibes.
I know. I mean, sometimes I have difficulties with when people are like, "Oh, Lady Phyll," and I'm like, "Yes, okay."
Yeah, but yours is like, do you know what? For the longest time, I was like, I was so glad to hear that you turned down the wall because I was like, oh, Lady Phyll, does that mean there's a badge in the Queen's Garden in
Wouldn't
there?
be acknowledging that, yeah. Too much history there, and look where we're finding ourselves in society right now. Well,
Absolutely. So I hope you got a chance to see the questions and how you.
I looked at them today because I thought if I look at them any earlier, it's going to throw me off kilter, and I literally glanced
Absolutely.
because I get nervous before I speak.
Me too. So I think that for me, it's just your my awareness is we're having a conversation. I'm so happy to move on for something if it doesn't feel right and it's not a fit in, whatever way you want to signal that to me, that's fine. And we'll move on because out the train, sometimes, it goes, there might be some therapeutic insight. So I
Mhm.
want you to benchmark for yourself the level of comfort with that. I'm not married to staying, in a place or in a feeling.
Definitely, definitely. I'm feeling a little bit emotional today, so anything can come out, and I also allow myself to cry now. Yeah, so
That's so beautiful. I caught for me. Yeah. So nice to meet you there.
you have such a beautiful, calming energy about you. My day has been really erratic and quite frantic, but you have such a calming energy. It almost feels like you feel safe.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm always aiming and working to build on that. So that is so lovely. And yeah, and I want to offer that, although I've met you at UK Black Pride and there is this role modeling and I'm going to explore that more. I
Mm.
also like that you're human and you're like you're encouraging me to be. That is so refreshing.
Exactly, exactly.
Absolutely. So would you be happy for us to kick off?
Let's kick off. Let me make sure this is all steady because I realise I'm making lots of noise. Right, there we go.
You're perfect. I'm loving the background as well, by the way.
With my throne.
Yes, absolutely. It's giving me that regal strength vibes.
Yeah, it would be nice if it was purple, deep, royal, regal purple.
Yeah, with some nice gold accents.
Come on, I'm high fiving you there.
Exactly, I'm with you. So, from the phone, Lady Phyll, I think it would be good probably to start with allowing you to introduce yourself, really, and your journey to this point, and and that may be from your work. I'll leave that over to you. Like, please introduce yourself and your journey to this point here.
Sure. So my name's Phyll Apokujima, and also known as Lady Phyll. I am the co-founder and executive director of UK Black Pride. I am the CEO of Kaleidoscope Trust, which is an LGBT human rights international charity. I'm an AKT, which is the Albert Kennedy Trust patron. I am a co-author and co-editor of a book called The Sister Anthology. I am a mother to an amazing 25-year-old, and I'm still trying to pretend like I'm 21, Um, And I am a Black African warrior woman
Yeah.
who is unapologetic in what she does and what she says now in this present time.
I'm just emboldened by that. And I feel that yes, like putting my stake in the ground.
Ah,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what I heard in that is a mix of your professional work, your private life, all blended into who you are right now.
It does, you know, I, I think I've been extremely blessed that, you know, I'm able to have a job and and my voluntary work with UK Black Pride that has so many parallels in it, that is so interlinked and interwoven with how I navigate the world, what I do, what I see, how I wish to advocate for change. Yeah, I'm really, really fortunate in that way, you know, even down to being a mother that gives me, I think, and I believe, particular skills that is about being caring and compassionate. You know, don't get me wrong, we have our moments, but I certainly know that as a mother, and you know, when people use that term mother of the movement, I kind of feel slightly uncomfortable there. But as a mother, I understand that just how you want to reach out to others and to people has to be done in a way that you show care and you show love, you show space and openness and transparency to that individual which is going to blossom. And it's very much like how I see UK Black Pride and also my own journey. UK Black Pride, when I explain it to people, or I should say when I explain it to Black people, I say UK Black Pride was conceived as an idea, then, you know, it was given birth to. And this little baby takes a whole village to raise it. And that's the community. And in raising UK Black Pride, it speaks different languages, it has different religion, faiths, and beliefs, and it's also an atheist at the same time. It has so many different intersections. It's from a particular socioeconomic background. It's wealthy, but doesn't yet realize its richness. It's powerful, doesn't yet realize its power and potential. It has so much family that is a community, and that's its chosen family. And I think chosen family is really important as a LGBTQ person. You know, as queer people, we often don't have our families around us because some of us may be marginalized or ostracized by them. But UK Black Pride is this beautiful being that is evolving and is growing all the time. And people can come in and they have abused it. And people can come in and they can teach it new things. They can, you know, weave their unique nuances into the fabric of what UK Black Pride's about. But all I ask is that people treat UK Black Pride as they would treat their own family member or their own home or their own prized possession that they love, because it's not going anywhere anytime soon, but it can crumble and fall if not treated right.
Absolutely. Treat it with care, nurture it, allow it to grow and expand, but also recognize the fragility if you want to
Yes,
take that apart, what makes it whole.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
I had so many beautiful images coming up when you were saying that, from like mold, like clay, just in the hands of clay and building this, this being. Thank you. Like, oh, that
We're
is
the
so beautiful.
creators of things, right?
Yeah.
So when we create, you know, there's a like an old Caribbean saying, take your hand and make fashion. And when you take your hand and make fashion, you can make so many things out of nothing. And, you know, the same way UK Black Pride was born with very, very little money in the pocket, is the same way we've lived our lives for so long, whether it's through enslavement and we've had everything stripped away from us, or slavery and everything's been taken from us. We've still managed to be resilient. We've still managed to show love and care to one another. We've still managed to connect in different languages, or even the master's language, which may not be our own. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, that is so, it's given me tingles and sensations to hear that. That's so beautiful. Thank you. And so we've already begun, but what I would like to sort of invite you to do is continue, is to set intentions for our time together. And I feel for me, my intentions now are just to continue to hear you and explore the richness and the value in your words. And I would like to invite you to set intentions too.
So I think for our conversation, our discussion, I want it just to be as organic as possible, because I said before we started that you have a beautiful, calming energy, and it's not very often I feel safe. It's not very often I feel free to speak to my experiences or those of others with, of course, permission. And it's not very often you get to sit down with another Black woman who understands or has that same shared commonality of our experiences as Black women and as dark-skinned Black women in a society that doesn't often value or recognize us. And this is not all about doom and gloom, but it's about when you connect with somebody that you just feel like you understand, or that they understand you, you can do nothing but to talk. So my intentions are just to have a beautiful conversation with you, and to be real, to be open, and to be honest, and to be transparent.
Thank you. And yeah, that brings me to actually being able to, you can't be what you can't see, is what that seems to bring.
Yeah, and Dr. Ronk says that so beautifully, right? And they're always like, yeah, you can't be what you can't see. And it's true. If we don't see ourselves in society in a way that feels positive, or in positions of influence or positions of change, then how do you know that you can aspire or achieve that particular goal to get there?
Absolutely. And I think that you brought about the richness and the resources that Black people have, even as enslaved people, even as experiencing so many levels and layers of oppression. And I think part of that resource, and also not being able to see Black beauty in the world, is depriving people of all of those incredible resources.
Well, and you know, Remi, don't you think we see, and or society sees what they want to see, and they don't see a Black person as a whole person. They see us in chunks, because our music, our culture, our hair, our many different things about who we are, our color of our skin, by way of them wanting to tan, you know, they see us in so many different bite sizes, and that's why they want some of us, you know, some of our beings. But to see us as a whole person is what's part of the problem. And I think if some of my white colleagues and comrades could recognize that, because we have been devalued, we have to be valued, and we have to be, as I say, woven into every fabric of society to be seen as a whole, because we shouldn't have to be talking about Black Lives Matter. Black lives should matter. Black lives should be front and center, because, you know, many people have benefited from Black lives. In fact, the majority of people, especially from a UK perspective, who are not Black, have benefited from Black lives. So, yeah, they really have.
Absolutely. And it's about bringing the whole self. And I guess by not wanting to see Black people, taking away parts like, oh, I like your music, but I don't like this about you or your struggle.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's denial. It's completely, it's
Yeah,
dismissive.
yeah, and I think there's a massive denial of Black people's experience, their lived experience, and you know, from school, from school age, at a young age, I remember hearing and learning all about the Battle of Hastings 1066, Henry VIII's wives, and knowing their names. But nobody taught me, apart from my Saturday school that my mum took me to, nobody taught me, the impact of colonialism in school. Nobody taught me that Black people had been enslaved, captured, had given their labor had their labor taken from them by force, and we had built so much and also invented so much and also made sure that crop and land was fertilized, but not for us but for others.
Mm.
I wish that that was being taught, because maybe young kids will have a sense of valuing the difference that they see in school. If you're only speaking about Wilberforce, or you're only speaking about, Henry VIII or Battle of Hastings 1066, that doesn't give you the breadth and understanding of difference. And, it's the same thing that applies when they weren't allowed to talk about, LGBT life in schools, and then that brought about Section 28, and the book, I think, of Martin and somebody else, I can't remember the other name, but that had two daddies, and it was like complete outrage. So if we do not usualize the conversation about difference, we don't get to be seen. I was also, and I digress slightly, but I was also watching this elder on the sports channel, and I don't know what his name is. I'm not sure whether he was an ex-football player or an ex-cricketer, but he said that, history is not written by those who have been conquered. It's written by those who are conquering. History and what we write is all about those who have the power and the privilege, not those who are oppressed. So it's high time that now, whilst we are protesting and whilst we are angry at society's contract that's been broken between us, that we start thinking of our theory of change and how we shape the narrative, how we start telling our stories, how we start documenting and archiving what we want to be heard and what we want to be seen. Being enslaved, that was our language taken from us. That was our ability to write and to hold any form of power in being able to communicate effectively and efficiently. So now is the time to really do it. And there's still a lot of history there. We just need to unearth it.
Absolutely, dig it out. And that makes me think about grief and loss. Actually, how do you sit with the loss that we experience as Black people through racism and erasure of our histories in the ways that you've spoken about?
I think, grief and loss is different for everybody. You can lose a family member who's so close to you, and you never quite get over it, and the way you sort of mourn or celebrate their life may happen every single day because you can't pass it. But I think that the grief and loss that us as a generation of Black people have lost so much, whether it's the wealth in our countries and it's been taken throughout the empires, whether it's our name and our language. I mean, I'm fortunate to be a Ghanaian woman who has a surname, a Pokujima. I have two languages from both my mother and my father, but some of my Caribbean siblings, they don't have that. They have a name which is, Williams or McBride or, whatever it may be. So that's a loss within itself. And I think when we start centering Blackness or talking about the Pan-African experience, some of us feel a sense of pain, but also a sense of urgency to address this. And in addressing pain and loss and grief can be done through anger and frustration, whether it's tearing down a statue, and not that I'm advocating that people do that, but I understand the premise behind why they did that. Some of it can be a sense of going into a very soul destroying dark place, and some can cry, hurt and pain, I think for us as a people has never really gone away.
Yeah.
We've just managed it differently because there's so many attacks on us as Black people, from enslavement to slavery to today's day and age, Grenfell, Windrush, Stephen Lawrence, so many different things. Black Lives Matter in terms of a UK context, deaths in custody, Black women, and people culturally appropriating us and taking the greatness of who we are, because that's a loss, and mimicking us and all sorts of things that I think, if I speak for myself here, how I deal with some of that hurts, that pain, and that loss really is I talk, I read, and my daughter's a singer, so I also love hearing her sing gospel. I think there's something that takes me back somewhere, that I must have been somewhere before that I don't know, or my grandmother, who's always watching over me, just allows me to center and ground myself and just be in a place of feeling hopeful and being resilient. But I don't always want to be resilient. I want to survive. I want to be okay. But loss is a hard one, because tomorrow I may feel a great sense of loss because of just what I'm navigating through the day. The next day I may be as happy as Larry and not even think about loss in that way, because I'm either trying to survive or actually it feels like a good day.
Yeah. So what I hear is sometimes it's very present for you, and sometimes it might be just mumbling in the background, but as a Black person you're always experiencing, engaged with loss.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you mentioned your grandmother, I believe, and that leads me on to thinking about ancestors. And I guess one of the things that I really call upon is, I do believe I had a past life and ancestors and people to guide me. And I wondered, who guides you?
Oh my gosh. So my grandmother does. She definitely guides me. So Remi, you may think this is funny. When I go to speak at big functions, I literally am cacking it. I am so nervous, tongue's going dry. And I recall one of my biggest functions I spoke at, which was Stonewall 50 rally in New York, because I was a Grand Marshal. I was saying, I'm calling on my ancestors, give me the words, give me the guidance. And they weren't there. I don't know where they went to. They may have had a cup of tea or gone and had some rum, but I was calling on them. And they said, okay, Lady Phyll, you're up next. And they pushed me up these stairs to get on the stage. I don't know what happened. And I was with a few friends. Something entered within me that gave me a voice for these hundreds of thousands of people that were stood there. And I was like, yeah, they've arrived. They've arrived. And it happens. It happens a lot. And I don't know how to explain it, but yes, they guide me, but they speak through me. They tell me this is not the right place. This is not what you should be doing. But actually, what about this direction? I feel very much guided by my ancestors. And as a Ghanaian girl, you have a naming ceremony, and that naming ceremony from birth is pouring of the libation, but they're calling a particular ancestor to guide you. So I'm named after my father's grandmother, who I don't want to say witch doctor, but was a herbalist. That's what I'm going to say. Was a herbalist, and she is the one who is supposed to guide me through life until I get to the next place in my juncture. And I certainly believe that that happens.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for sharing the naming ceremony and that rite of passage. That is so powerful. And also just sharing that visceral experience of your ancestors. And it just feels like, though I'm speaking with you, there are many parts of you and people with you.
Absolutely. I don't believe there's just one. I always talk about, yes, we stand on the shoulders of giants, um, and it's not one person that has brought me to this place of whether one sees it as successful or a good role model or whatever it may be. It's many people, the same way my mother and my grandmother and my great grandmother had guidance from the elders, that have brought them to a place that have allowed them to raise me. So there's many, and sometimes there are ancestors that we don't even know about. I like to think that Yawa Santua is within me, because that is the Black African warrior woman that I've read up about, and I'm like so in awe of this woman that stood front and center of protecting our golden stool in Ghana when the British came to take this. She was the army, and maybe on my gravestone or wherever it is, it's like in brackets, and she hopes to meet and connect with Yawa Santua, you know. And I've never really explained that to anybody. I'm telling you, and I think this is because I feel that sense of connection, that you understand and and we feel that we're guided by different things.
Absolutely. And I think that strength, that internal strength that you talk about, actually, I'm so glad that you've brought that, because I think that what I would initially feel or assume is that leadership, and especially maybe in your role, there would be increased isolation. But, that, but how you described it kind of started to challenge that perception for me.
Yeah. It's funny you should mention increase isolation, because I kind of feel like there's a question in there that you might want to ask me. I'm I'm not sure if it's, do I feel increased isolation in particular instances, or are we just highlighting increased isolation?
I think I was just naming it, but actually I think there is a question in that, and is that, do you experience isolation in a leadership role, in your roles that you hold?
Yeah, yeah, a lot. Um, yeah, it feels sometimes that the more you are given a platform and a voice to speak, and I don't mean, those who are privileged giving me a voice, because I was born with a voice. I was born with a purpose to do what I'm doing. But you hold positions that may have and carry some influence and some weight, that you have to find ways of And I believe either Bell Hooks or Audre Lorde said it best, the coding switch. And that coding switch is often where we can sometimes self-edit ourselves so that we can be understood by many different audiences. You know, if I'm sat in a room with 7 white men, and they say, oh, we've all got to be authentic and bring our true selves to work. My darling, you're not going to like me if I bring my whole true self to work. You will sack me in a heartbeat, although you can't sack me because I'm the CEO of Kaleidoscope Trust. At the same time, I recognize that when I'm trying to explain power, privilege, white fragility to them, I have to come with a different approach so that they can hear me. And there's a coding switch that happens. So whether there's a little computer in my brain saying, you know, Brian and Bobby and, you know, Mark are already feeling guilty about some of the things you're saying. I don't want you to feel guilty. It's self-indulgent. I want you to feel uncomfortable about what I'm saying, but I also need you to hear me so that you can take what I've said in your leadership positions and advocate for change. You know, I don't point and wag the finger, but you will hear a different level of passion from me that still feels radical enough for me to not feel like I'm completely self-editing myself. But yeah, at certain points I do feel alone. I'm not sure if it's just isolated, and maybe they could be one of the same words, but I feel a sense of loneliness sometimes, that you're managing and leading people and organizations, and you're, whilst I've worked to aspire to get into positions that mean I can affect change, it also feels kind of far removed from some of the groundwork I did as an activist from grassroots upwards.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. I'm just sort of taking time because the coding switch that you speak of, I think, exists and exists in all layers of Black experience. So I hear that as you're in these spaces with, you know, just like large amounts of white people of influence and power, how they're able to receive you. You have to have an awareness of that. And yeah.
Once, Remi, when I first got this job in Kaleidoscope Trust, and, you know, it's human rights, and the human rights arena where they do some amazing work, but also it's very white. Those who are policymakers, change makers, agents of change, from the base of being a donor or a funder, not your activist or human rights defender in countries, but the others that are very much about, sorry,
No, that's okay.
give me a second.
No problem.
I love you too. Bye. I'm sorry.
So you was, I don't know if you want me to give you a sense. You was talking about in Kaleidoscope and people that
Yes.
form and change. Yeah.
So yeah, those change agents and funders are normally white, and I've gone into this role being the first Black lesbian woman to hold such a position in the global north. Now that is just striking and astonishing for me, because the people we set out to serve are from the global south, and those in the global south, Asia, Africa, Pacific, you know, the Caribbean, they are Black and brown people. So it still shows you this Guinness effect that is happening even within the human rights sector. And I say the Guinness effect, you know, black and brown people and the white layer at the top, maybe the odd speckle of brown will get there, and that might be me. So how do I find ways of changing the dynamic? But when I started, and that's the point I was making, when I started, I had four white men say different things to me about they were nervous when they heard of my appointment, they were scared that I might be too radical for this job. One asked me, oh, do you think you're up for it? And the other one said, oh, it would be nice to have you there because we do need representation, and you being a black woman, it'll be good. So I thought, wow, that's really interesting that these four men, one being scared, and I just put it down to maybe because my politics are really radical, and that's a good thing in my eyes. But just knowing that they had something to say about my appointment showed me that it doesn't matter whether you are going for a road cleaning job. It doesn't matter whether you're going to be working on the tubes or the buses. It doesn't matter whether you're going to be middle management, or it doesn't matter whether you're going for a CEO position. There are still levels at which people's unconscious bias comes into play, and you know, and they don't realize that they're doing this. But I do struggle sometimes to understand the space and to understand why we still take a, in some instances, because I don't want to generalize, why we still take a colonialist approach to how we work. Why are we not changing the dynamic and ensuring, in KT we do, Kaleidoscope Trust, but ensuring that those human rights defenders are leading and guiding us and telling us what they need in their countries, which they are navigating laws, they are navigating state sanctions, they are navigating so many things. It's not for me to tell you how we're going to remove colonial era laws, it's for you to tell me. And I hope that for however long I hold this role, that I start to make those changes, that the dynamic and the optics and the way in how we organize, mobilize and galvanize changes completely.
Yeah, that sounds revolutionary, but not where we should be. I feel, yeah, I feel complicated using the word revolution just to describe something that sounds just like the way of being, the way it should be, right?
Yeah, but when you don't hold privilege, or you have less privileges, and you are not in positions of power, whatever power may look like to one, or in positions of influence, for us it's revolutionary.
Yeah,
Surviving is revolutionary.
absolutely. Surviving. And you spoke about surviving and it's come through. And it makes me think about, like, what do you do to help you survive? And that feels about like a self-care question as well within there.
Yeah, I'd like to say that I'm really good at applying self-care. I'm really good at talking about it, and telling my team from UK Black Pride and Kaleidoscope Trust what they should do better to support themselves, how, you know, they should take time out, take annual leave. I'm not the best at doing it. Um, yeah, I'd be a liar and a hypocrite if I said, oh yes, I do all these wonderful things, but you know, I'm learning to sleep.
Yeah.
And I think what this pandemic and COVID-19 has done, there is a silver lining, and I speak from my own perspective, that it's allowed me to press the reset button. I think the whole world has pressed the reset button, but I was constantly running for a train, a a plane, you know, a bus. I was going from meeting to meeting. I was, you know, speaking here, speaking there, not eating very well, picking up a sandwich, getting home at 11 o'clock at night, then making sure that, you know, UK Black Pride work was done, and then making sure my daughter was all right, and my dad, who suffers from prostate cancer, just making sure everything was right. So I didn't really have any time for myself. So this pandemic has come, and I started working from home remotely on the 16th of March. And I tell you, I have never enjoyed my bed so much. I love my house. I've never seen so much of it. You know, I can sit downstairs, and I don't really watch TV. The TV watches me, but I'm like, you've got this really nice TV. I put it on. I've even bought myself an Alexa. Oh, I better not say it too much because she might come on. But just so I can hear my podcasts as I'm, you know, cleaning the house. So for me, I think that, of course, COVID-19 and coronavirus is horrendous, and it's disproportionately impacting our Black and brown people and communities. But for me, this has meant I can stand still.
Yeah.
I've stood in my truth. I've cried a little. I've laughed a lot. I've been able to read. I've been able to, you know, change my bedding when I say I want to change my bedding. And that feels like my way of self-care and something that's being given back to me. Because if you're no good for you, you can't be any good for society.
Absolutely. And that makes me, it really brings up about some of the conditioning that I think as well as Black women experience around caregiving. And in that conditioning, what comes up is missing your own needs. Yeah. And I just wondered if that fit or how that feels to hear that.
How it feels to hear that is like, you know, that reality check of you saying something that we know all too well, but we never really acknowledge it because we don't have time to stop because we're constantly giving care. You know, there's a book by Dr. Alvin Morrows called Breaking the Curse of the Willie Lynch Syndrome. And in this book, he talks about how we raise our Black boys and our Black girls. We raise our Black boys to be physically strong and to make sure that they feel masculine because of how they have been demasculated through enslavement. And we raise our girls to be caring and nurturing and to make sure that they are mentally strong. And being mentally strong has often led us to being seen as hard, aggressive, and angry in other people's eyes, when we're really just assertive and we're caregivers and we're loving and we're nurturing in such beautiful ways. But our approach from when we have this beautiful Black girl baby, and I'm saying that not in the way to exclude our non-binary siblings, but by biological sex, a Black girl child, that we pray over that child to make sure that they will be mentally strong because of what they will endure. The patriarchy is real, the sexism, the misogyny, the misogynoir is real. So we have to be hard. Our brain is wired to be hardened to things that affect and impact us. We are the same ones that look after the men when they are poorly, or those who identify as men. We are the same ones who are just standing in that truth and still not having the same equal rights as anybody who may be a white woman, or even when the black man got the right to vote, or whatever it may look like, we still stand there and give care, love, and attention, but then we're still devalued and being seen as the lowest of low as black women. So we're allowed to, and I say this to a lot of black women, and maybe that is part of my self-care, we're allowed to cry. We're allowed to say it's okay to not be okay. You know, I say to my daughter, it's okay, you know, you can cry, you can get angry. I've even on occasions allowed her to swear just to get it out of her system, just not too regular. But it's okay for us to do that. And even now, as I'm saying it, I'm getting emotional, because we're never allowed to do what feels right and what feels just for us. We always have to be this pillar, this strength, this to hold everything up. And I think that can be so damaging. But as black women, we have gone through so much and continue to. So yes, and we continue to. So we just need to know that it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for giving myself and the listeners permission to be okay to not be okay. Because what I hear is, as black people, black women especially, and then I think about our black trans feminine siblings as well, we're not given permission to be vulnerable.
Yeah. And you know what's happening with our trans siblings is the vitriol, that why are we spending time debating what toilets they should go in, when really all they want to do is survive. And you'll notice I keep on saying this word survive, because it's about survival right now. And it shouldn't be about just survival. It should be about being able to live, being able to access housing, health, education, being able to benefit from the same thing your counterpart benefits from, and not just survive. But our trans siblings are going through an enormous amount, and I'm trying to look at ways of, you know, when we talk about allyship, how can I be a better ally? How can I platform and amplify? How can I listen? How can I support? Because I'm not of the trans experience, but I do know that their struggle has to be my struggle.
Absolutely. And I think that in going beyond survival, I think there's also needs to be room for pleasure and joy and celebration and UK Black Pride.
Yes.
Celebration.
Dry the eyes. I might start again. I don't know where it came from, but I'm letting it happen.
Yeah, leave it.
Yeah, UK Black Pride. Can you believe that we're 15 years old this year?
No, I can't believe that. But that also makes me think how long I've been sneaking into UK.
15 years old.
Yeah.
And you know, I was asked a question by one of the youngsters, that I shouldn't call them youngsters, one of the young people that I work with, and they said, could you ever imagine that you'd be here at 15 years, in 15 years? And I said, I always knew that UK Black Pride was going to be big, but I didn't realize we would get to this place. But what it's shown me is that, you know, the unity, the collective voices, the way that our community has heard that clarion call of coming together, our volunteers and team that make it happen. So seeing all of that, I'm like, yeah, everything and anything is possible. When they tell you, no, you can't have a Black Pride in this country, 200 people in 2005 to 2019, 10,000 people. Tell me if that is not our communities celebrating and also protesting, because we don't divorce the two.
Yeah. Pride is a protest.
Right?
Yeah. Get to know.
I ask you a question.
Of course you may.
How, what, what does attending UK Black Pride mean to you?
So for me, it was my coming out. I came out relatively early. I came out at 14 and have been going to probably white queer spaces. And I'd call them that because I felt a lot of exclusion. And I found UK Black Pride. And it was just, I had a really visceral experience. I just breathed. I breathed, my body relaxed, and I was connected to myself. And then I saw other Black queer people, and that was powerful because I felt a sense of isolation because I was the only person out in my secondary school. I was the only person in my friendship group. Like, actually, I would say now I have a strong base of queer friends, but that actually wasn't my experience. And the queer friends I had were older, a lot older. So it was like coming and just relaxing and seeing myself reflect. And I was like, okay, so the person I've just been like, this is me, unapologetic. Oh, there's more of us. Oh, there's a crew. Because, yeah, because that loneliness is what can really eat away at parts of yourself, and why I've spent so much money, will continue to spend my life working on getting to know myself, because that loneliness at a young age starts to eat away, and it's about healing that.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. That, I just want to hold you and give you a hug and say, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing that.
No, absolutely. Sorry, I cut you. No, absolutely. It feels so important because, in that vision that you had, I don't know if it was like what I was saying in that vision, that's the vision's big, but like if you drill down, there's me, and I'm encompassed in that, and it's exactly what you expected it to be and mean.
Wow. See, this is the sort of information or stories or people's journeys that I hear that makes me say, even though the devil is a liar, this right here is nourishing. It feeds my soul and makes me realize, even when there is a bad day, there's a Remi that has claimed and occupied her space at UK Black Pride, or their space at UK Black Pride. What's beautiful is that UK Black Pride doesn't belong to one person. It belongs to us all because it's created by us and for us. So
Yeah, and it makes, yeah, and I'm glad that it doesn't belong to one person. Or I guess the question, is there a question, more of a statement? We'll see how it comes out. Actually, if it belongs to one person, I wonder if it's harder to have accountability and responsibility, where it's collected, then the responsibility for what that stands for, I guess, is shared.
So I think there's a question and a statement there, but yes, when UK Black Pride started, it kind of felt like it belonged to two people, and we were making it happen in a way that, we set the terms and we said, oh, this is how it's going to be. But as it grew and grew, I certainly recognized the need for engagement and involvement from those who are going to attend.
Yeah.
So how do you learn and grow about our Black trans siblings and include them? Diversity and inclusion and intersectionality is not just a learning tool that white people have to know. We have to know, because I'm not my experience is not that of the trans experience. So how do I ensure that intersection of Blackness and where it meets is woven through UK Black Pride? You have to engage. You have to say, tell us what is needed to make this the most successful Black Pride. You know, we've just started working with a young person, and he is teaching us so much about being a person of color and intersex. And it's like blown my mind. And I'm like, wow, I could be complicit in the sort of erasure of intersex people who happen to be people of color if it wasn't for this young person telling us about how they need to be amplified, the language that we use, how we tailor particular, you know, programs to fit. So yeah, I think that that's what makes us accountable, because it's set by the community or a group, a core team of people that will hold me to account and say, look, we might need funding here, here, and here, but this is what we need to do for our community because this is what we're hearing on the ground, or this is the research that we've done. And that way we can go back to our communities and say, you asked for this, and this is what we made sure we sought to give you back.
Yeah. So you're role modeling the listening and the demonstration that I hear that you want to see in other parts of your activism. So you're role modeling.
Yeah. And I've never even just looked at it like that, but yeah. Gosh, you have a beautiful way with words. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And so I guess I would stay and talk forever with you. I don't even want to wrap up. I'm not even trying to wrap up yet.
Oh my gosh, I'm looking at the time and I'm like, okay, well, it's fine. It's fine.
It's how it's meant to be. But I would like to ask you, what does the future look like for you? What are your intentions for the space to come, the space you're going to occupy?
The future's intersectional. I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic. You know, we're seeing a groundswell of a new wave of activism. And I think in certain parts, and if I speak to America, we're teetering on the edge of a revolution.
Yeah.
And I've always said, I want to be part of that revolution. I want it to be, yes, televised, but I think the future looks like so many different things right now. I hope that youth homelessness for, you know, Black and POC people is, and all young people, is eradicated, because there are things around homelessness, around poverty, around class, around gender, sexual orientation or sexuality, race, that prevents us from doing things or accessing things. And those are barriers which are awfully oppressive. I think the future looks like dismantling some of those tables that have been occupied and built and not built for us. Yeah. Some of the systems and the institutions that are having to speak about structural and systemic racism and being uncomfortable, people are recognizing that they have to do different. But I think occupying spaces for UK Black Pride, now UK Black Pride will be around as long as our communities need it. Yeah. The aim would be to not ever need a pride, to not have to talk about Black History Month, to not have to talk about any of those things. But whilst there are so many inequalities in society, we are here to continue amplifying voices, to be seen and to be heard, to smash the patriarchy, to enter into spaces we have not historically occupied, and to make sure that representation is there at all levels. Now, it sounds grand, but we can do this if we have a great theory of change, if we use policymakers who understand how the dynamics have played out, to use influencers in so many different ways, to also use therapists, psychotherapists and counselors to help heal us on this journey, because the future being intersectional means there's going to have to be some healing. And we are a people of hurt people because of what we've gone through. So in order to advocate and implement change, we've also got to heal along the way in that process. But I'm really hopeful. I am awfully hopeful, because if it's not me that does it, I know that I've instilled some values in my daughter and other people that I talk to when I'm having an intergenerational conversation, that they are the next leaders. They are the next ones to hold up the baton and say, we're going to run with this.
Absolutely. There's so much value in that next generation and intergenerational discussion.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought about it like that, but like the ancestors that we spoke about, talking with grandparents and stuff, is put the fire in my belly for change now.
And you put the fire in my belly, knowing that, you know what, you're young, you're amazing, you're beautiful inside and out, and it makes me say, oh, come on, let's do better and know better, and let me make sure that anything that I have in my mind that I've written down, how do I pass that information to you? Whether you choose to use all of it, but how do I make sure I'm handing that to you? You know, there's something my mother says, and, you know, I use it all the time. She says, you do not inherit this land from your parents. You borrow it from the next generation.
Yeah.
And by borrowing it from the next generation, we have a duty to really look after this land, to plough it, to crop it, to make sure that it's fertilized in the right way, cultivate it, so that when we're not around, that next generation doesn't feel like they're reinventing the wheel. That next generation feels like, yes, we may have struggles and challenges to overcome, but they're a lot better than what was before, because we stand on the shoulders of giants.
Absolutely. And I was gonna say, it feels like that way of being and those ideas for the next generation need to be handed down in like, and then I thought, so initially I thought will, and then I thought, no, it's storytelling, isn't it? That.
Yes. Remember what I said at the beginning? Shaping our narrative, telling our stories. The conqueror is never going to tell our stories because they've conquered, right? So we have to tell our stories. We have to have this discourse and this dialogue. We have to usualize the subjects about our being and what we need, how we need it, when we need it, and how we're going to get it. And if we don't do that, then we don't have anything to pass on. We'll continue to keep on talking about the things which are challenging us, but actually let's tell the story, because that person or that person might relate to it, and then you have an even bigger unifying voice, a louder voice, turning up volumes on society, right?
Yeah,
Making it impossible to turn the volume down on us.
exactly, making it impossible to turn the volume down on us. I love that. I absolutely love that. That's beautiful. And when you talked about the future, you talked about healing and the need for therapy, and I'm sure there's that's a broad spectrum of things. And I'm wondering how you perceive the stigma around mental health in the Black community.
So, you know, my parents are very strong people, you know. My mom, it's like, don't cry. What were you crying for? Why are you crying?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm not crying. And we hold it all in because, remember, as I said, Black girls especially are taught to be strong. Don't, you know, why are you crying for? That is an amount of pressure to put on a child, that when that child then grows up, we feel that this is how we've got to be in relationships. And when we do break, because everyone can break, when everyone has mental health, but when it becomes poor or ill mental health, it can manifest in so many different ways. Whether we call it bipolar, whether we call it Asperger's, whether we call it any number of things, whether we call it just poor mental health, I think that the Black community has often said things like, oh my gosh, what happened in their family? Who put juju on them that the child's gone and lost their mind? You know, terms like that. But it's not that. It's actually we're coping with far too much that our brain can contend with, that our bodies can contend with, that we just need a helping hand. I think the stigma around that has often in the past been negative. And I can't talk about what it feels like now because I've chosen to surround myself with people that have an understanding that healing and talking and overcoming things and finding support is important. And it's not that I'm dismissive of those who stigmatize. I just haven't got the physical or mental capacity or energy to fight somebody on that sort of stigmatization, because I'm going through my daily healing constantly.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I think I really like you giving that explanation as to where it sits and where it comes from, and actually giving space to focusing on the healing and moving away from stigmatizing vulnerability and emotions and poor mental health, rather than focusing on those that are throwing the shades and judging.
Yeah. I mean, it's really good to talk, though. I think even this for me, and maybe I'm taking advantage slightly because I'm like, oh my gosh, I know that she has this beautiful aura and energy, and yeah, I'm like, oh, I'm going to stay on this line because this for me is so cathartic and so energizing and so healing, and we don't get chances often to have an outpouring.
Yeah.
We don't have chances often to sit and cry. We don't have a chance to sit and laugh because there's always something else we've got to do next. So, you know, if I have to pay you for this session, I'm happy to donate to Unmind. I am happy to do that because I felt really good in having this conversation with you.
Thank you. I feel the same. And I think that, yeah, for me, talking, I recognize being family dynamics and actually growing up in a matriarchal background where you have to do the caring, the cooking, all of those roles, as well as the healing in whatever that looks like. And talking has been a way that my family are like, have done that. Like, we have problems, but it's like, we're going to talk about them, we're going to sit down, we're going to thrash them out, and then we can move on. And so I really see the value in talking.
Yeah. You know, we need more Black healers in our communities. We need more Black psychotherapists, counsellors who are Black. I once had a therapist, and she was amazing. She was, oh, I love her. She was so good. A white woman, but as we started to, or as I started to unpack and unpick some of the things that lead me to behave in particular ways, it stemmed back so far into my family origins and the genesis of certain things that have unfolded. And as great as she was, she couldn't understand what was rooted in this Blackness, or this African dynamic that plays out. And I'm not saying don't go to white therapists. Of course, absolutely. Go to who makes you and how you feel comfortable. But because there was a lot of unpacking to do, I recognized that our journey together had come to an end, and it came to a beautiful end because we both explained that there's something that I need that maybe she's not able to understand or give me, and she understood that there's something that I need that she's not able to open up for me. And it wasn't until I met my very first a black counselor, and we were just talking, this wasn't about a session or anything, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she gets me. She gets me. And I'm like, I wish there was an almanac, a yellow pages of Black and POC counselors, therapists, that, you know, when people are looking for a specific kind of healing or conversation, that they can say, all right, okay, I'm going to go to Unmind. Oh, Remi's there. Or, oh, I need to pick out because I think that she'll be good for me.
Yeah.
I think there's some work to be done, even in our healing space.
Absolutely. And I've got resources that I will share with you, because I think that'd be really good. Because, yeah, that, I think through Black Lives Matter, especially in the emphasis, healing, Black healing has been coming up, that's radical.
Yes. Oh, come on.
Exactly. Yes. So that directory is now existing and it's
Oh
beautiful.
my gosh, come on, let us launch this for
Exactly.
UK Black Pride and Unmind, doing something collaborative together.
Absolutely. I think it'd be so important because, yeah, I think it's Audre Lorde talks about self-care, and so the healing is the part of the activism. You can't divorce them from each other.
Oh,
Yeah.
I wish you were here. I really would give you a big squeeze. Because I'm a hugger, by the way. So I just, yeah.
I'm gonna have that hug. Don't worry. This is gonna build up the suspense because I'm looking forward to it. I've got something to look forward to meeting you and having that hug.
Yeah. Well, look, I know that timing is not necessarily on my side. I didn't want to end this conversation at all. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask you, just before we leave, if have you asked everything that have you said everything that you'd like to say?
I'm a thinker, so it might come to me at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I might say, "Oh my gosh, did this to Remi." I mean, I am a real thinker, and I'll be like, "Oh, or I said that, but I forgot to mention this." No, I haven't actually. I haven't said that that I think I would like Black women, especially at this present time, to let them know that I see you and I hear you and I feel you.
That's so beautiful. Thank you. I think that's such a beautiful message, that you hear, that you see.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things I do now that I'm working online, which has been new, doing counseling online like this, is to transition. Is that transitioning from computer screen to your life is so important, actually. And I was just wondering if there is a message that how are you going to transition from this space, is one question. And also, how would you want to encourage people, the listeners, to transition from this space?
I think give yourself a few moments, have a glass of water, take some deep breaths, whether you inhale for 5 and exhale for 7, and let some of that go, which may feel heavy or whatever you may have digested, absorbed, but also embracing, when you inhale, the greatness of the conversation and the dialogue, And then if you have the opportunity to, afterwards, just shut your laptop for a bit and walk away. So I'm going to go downstairs into my kitchen. I'm going to have something deliciously unhealthy, like a nice, bar or something. And then, I can walk back, and maybe I might center my mind in, I've got another meeting that I have to prepare for, that I'll just read my notes and then go back into it. But I won't forget this, because I may come back to it later on this evening, because there's so many emotions that I felt that I want to tap into them, because some of those emotions I can't quite explain, but it actually made me feel good. So I want to unpick that and know that feeling and be able to use it when I may be having a down day.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm holding that in my heart. Thank you for being unapologetic and beautiful and bringing yourself. And I am going to take those breaths with you when I leave this space. Thank you so much, Lady Phyll. It's been an honor and a beautiful privilege.
Thank you.
Also, if you do feel that you want to share that conversation with me after, if something comes up via email, you've got my details, please. I encourage you to get in touch. It's been so beautiful. Can I get a picture of us before you?
Of course. Let me make sure that my watery eyes are just not.
I don't even know how to screenshot on my thing. Oh my God, this is.
I have to do it on my. I wonder where my phone is.
Oh no, that's the wrong button.
I am not so great at doing the.
I know. Look, I'll let you take the picture first, and then I'll bring up my camera.
Okay, so smile. Okay, so I've got one. Oh no, it's not so great, but I guess we can try. Oh, this is quite. Yeah, I think that we may have to see if we do screenshots if it's possible.
I think what I'll ask Steve if he could just grab us if there's a screenshot from a still. Should I ask him to do that?
Oh, so we should just hold for a moment, right? Steve, can you get this part? Yeah. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, beautiful. Take care, go safe.
I will, and you too, and stay well.
I will, and you too. Replenish and love. Blessings on you.
And don't forget the deep breaths and being able to shut the laptop for a moment.
Oh, I will do. I took the whole day off. That's exactly what I'm going to do.
Okay. All right, I'm high-fiving you now. You've done better than me. All right. Take care, beautiful. Bye.
Bye-bye.